Up next on Parks Rec and Roll, we're honoring community members. They made possible a state-of-the-art greenhouse at Brookside Gardens in Wheaton, an historic cabin in Kensington, and legislation that enhanced our trails. Stay tuned. The fall of 2018 brought a lot of new projects to Montgomery County, Maryland's Parks Department. Let's begin our tour at the greenhouse at Brookside Gardens. A ribbon cutting was held there on September 21st, attended by county council members, parks staff, and the guest of honor, Joan O'Rourke, among others. The greenhouse was named after Joan and her husband, John O'Rourke, who passed away in 2010. Joan O'Rourke donated $1 million towards its construction. She began her relationship with Brookside about 25 years ago as a volunteer.
Brookside Gardens had planned a master plan, and the master plan called for many phases. A new greenhouse was so far down the list that I thought, well, we'll never get the greenhouse. And in the meantime, I'd be watering in the old greenhouse over there. If it rained, I got more water on me than the plants did. So I thought, well, one of these days we're going to have a new greenhouse. And I offered to make a donation to build a greenhouse.
So to give you an idea of the size of the greenhouse, it's 11,500 square foot total under cover. Of that, about 1,500 square feet is the head house, so the room where we do the work. And 10,000 square feet is the glass area where the plants grow. The total budget for the project was about $3.4 million, and of that, about a third of that was a gift.
I gave him the money in 2014, and now you know when it was finished. It was just a few months ago, so you can tell how long it took. Now, I think they did a nice job. We're still learning how to run it. I'll learn. But I think that we have a good group here.
And this greenhouse is key because we're constantly growing plants for our garden displays, both the outdoor displays, but also 5 conservatory show changes in the conservatory.
So this is the new greenhouse donated by Joan O'Rourke. This room that we're in right now is as we call it, the tropical room. And this is where a lot of the plants from the gardens will return for the wintertime, and we'll hold them in this house at a reasonable temperature to keep them alive through the wintertime. We use an automated greenhouse computer system to run basically the whole greenhouse. It's known as Priva. Above us there is an open air roof that opens and closes as the temperature needs to fluctuate according to what we keep it at. You'll also see shade curtains that protect the plants from burning hot sun in the summertime, and in the wintertime it will help keep the heat into the greenhouse. So this is the butterfly room. So we need to keep the butterfly plants separate from the other plants because we don't want to spray harsh chemicals on any of these plants because we don't want to harm any of the butterflies at the butterfly exhibit. We also started using biological insects, beneficial insects, in order to treat all the invasive insects. So we're not using harsh chemicals on them at all. This is the largest room of the new greenhouse. This is where we'll be growing a lot of the mums for the Mum Show, which is in October, and a lot of the annuals that will be grown for the gardens in the springtime. One of the reasons I wanted to bring you in here is to show you the storm drain. There's a lot of these storm drains that come from the gutters, the water. We capture all the rainwater. So all the water comes down into these pipes and goes outside into a cistern where it captures all the water, and we reuse that. We are in the production of putting the heat mats together. as well as a misting system, which will help us start plants at a young age, so we can start things from seed or from cuttings a little bit earlier. It'll be cheaper for us to do as well. So this is basically where all the plants start out, and then they will go over into the other houses. We have high pressure sodium light bulbs, which we can turn on to help push the plants as well.
It's just amazing. I've always been interested in what happens, sort of in the back of the house of this type of operation. And to realize that they had, this one greenhouse that was built in 1980s, the staff really helped build it, but it was really outdated. And so now with the generous support of Joanne O'Rourke, $1 million that she gifted to the Brookside, the Friends of Brookside, et cetera, to get this 11,500 square feet, state-of-the-art greenhouse with, technology throughout, really will give more than 400,000 visitors a year an enhanced opportunity to enjoy the gardens.
Brookside Gardens will be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2019. Check its website for events throughout the year. On October 20th, 2018, an historic piece of parkitecture was christened when the Kensington Cabin officially reopened. After more than 25 years of disrepair, it was renovated by Montgomery Parks, along with a $150,000 donation from the Cupid Foundation, the charitable foundation founded by Under Armour CEO Kevin Plank. His mother, Jane Plank, was the mayor of Kensington for 8 years in the 1970s, and Kevin Plank and his brothers grew up playing at the park near their home. The cabin is named in honor of their mother.
Kensington Cabin Park is one of our oldest parks in the Montgomery County Park System. The land was conveyed to the Park and Planning Commission by the town of Kensington back in the 1930s, so thank you to the town of Kensington for this great partnership. The cabin was built in 1934 during the Great Depression, and it was started out with funds from the Civil Works Administration, which was an outgrowth of the New Deal, but completed by Park and Planning staff when that funding source fell short. It's a classic example of what is called parkitecture, a concept of rustic architecture promoted by the National Park Service in the 1930s.
Well, many of the logs were severely deteriorated, so we had to stabilize the building and do repair work to the logs. Many of the windows were missing, so we recreated the historic windows. We have the original plans for the building, so that really helped a lot. In addition, the original doors were gone, so we recreated the original doors. Also, the interior of the cabin had several different levels, floor levels. Step up, step down, that type of things. It didn't have different stories, just different levels. So we made it all one level so that anybody with mobility issues can access the cabin safely.
This cabin is a big part of Kensington's local history. It's one of the best examples of an older cabin like this that we have in the county, and to have it preserved and used, it can be used now for summer camps and events. It's really going to be part of the community here in Kensington, and it's a fantastic park. It's such an open place. You got a creek, you got different kinds of play spaces, basketball, baseball, tennis. This little park has everything, so I'm really excited for the Kensington community.
The people of Kensington, the people of Montgomery County deserve a lot of credit because this was challenged. It was challenged from the beginning during the Great Depression as to whether they could get it built, but they came together and got the facilities put up for the community because they knew how important a park was. It was challenged again in the 1990s where the cabin went in disrepair, and yet the preservation people preserved it so that the time would come they could renovate and reopen. So the community has shown a great deal of resiliency in making sure that this treasure remains for the community. But it required community activism and partners.
And we stand here today, 27 years later, with this beautifully restored cabin, recently recognized with the Rehabilitation of Historic Resources for Public Use Award from the Montgomery Preservation. Jane, on a personal note, when I was putting this together, it brought tears to my eyes that your son chose to honor you in this way. It is a gift to the community that I know you must be very proud of.
And I'm so pleased that the cabin and the park has been brought back to life. It was the neighborhood center of activities for all my boys and their friends, a place to meet, and play and learn and grow. A place to make forever memories.
My she's a tough human being. And she's somebody that taught me work ethic at a very young age. And so, my mother never let moss grow. And so whether it was I'd come home and she worked the entire time I grew up, and I would have never known the difference other than the fact I thought it was just the way what moms did. But understanding what it's like to raise 5 boys, as well as to have a career, be the mayor of our town, work for the State Department, and just to be so committed to service and giving back. So very special lady that taught a lot of those really core values.
It's a very, very, very special day for me because my children lived in this park. This is what we always loved and had. And we had many events here. You have that, I think, the picture inside of the 1976 bicycle parade. And we also had Abe Lincoln there.
I was invited to be here, and so I showed up. Now, as to the significance of, I think it has to do with a log cabin. I think that's the connecting motif. I grew up in 1 or 2 myself.
I remember playing in Kensington Cabin when it rained. We played ping pong. I remember coming here for a birthday party, and I remember being here with my Girl Scout troop.
It's community. What can I say? Just community. It's a wonderful place.
The cabin is available for community meetings, birthday parties, summer camps, and more. Go to activemontgomery.org for rental information. Did you hear about the newest Trail Rail Banking awardee? Well then, meet Bethesda resident Peter Rayner. He was honored by the Rails to Trails Conservancy on October 2nd, 2018, which also coincided with the 50th anniversary of the National Trails System Act.
Welcome everybody to the Capitol Crescent Trail, one of the most popular amenities in Montgomery Parks. I'm Mike Riley, the Director of Parks Department. I'm pleased to be with the Rails to Trails Conservancy today on the 50th anniversary of the National Trails System Act to recognize one of the great champions of that act.
On this date in 1968, President Johnson signed that really momentous bill that really created the modern trails movement in the United States. And we're here today to celebrate not only that, but a champion who helped make something happen 15 years after that.
Peter Rayner was given the 2018 Doppelt Family Rail Trail Champion Award for his role in writing the 1983 Rail Banking Act.
For anyone who might not know, rail banking was a provision that was added saying that instead of abandoning a corridor and letting it go back to adjacent landowners, that it would be protected for future railroad use and interim trail use. And so that has been an essential tool in us being able to create all these trails. We now have more than 4,200 miles of trail that were rail banked, and without that law in place, that would not have been possible.
Pete helped conceptualize this law and then didn't know the impact that it had across the country. We knew the impact that it had across the country, but we never knew who did it. And finally, after a lot of sleuthing, we found each other, which has been a wonderful moment. And this is what we're celebrating today with the award for Pete.
Well, I was 34 years as a lawyer for the Park Service and the Fish and Wildlife Service. And my mantra was, always have an agenda. You may be just cattle feed in the room listening to somebody who has his own or her own agenda, but you have to have your agenda. You have to know what you want out of that meeting. You don't always get it. Sometimes you don't even get a chance to voice it, but you have to know what you want. Thank you. I am ennobled by this, but I'm also very humbled because you folks have made these trails possible. I didn't. I drafted one thing, you did the rest. So thank you all very much. This is a wonderful experience because it says that what I wrote worked because the people picked it up and ran with it. And that's the key. It takes all of us.
To learn more about the Rails to Trails Conservancy, go to railstotrails.org. To explore Montgomery Park's trails, go to montgomeryparks.org/trails. Well, that's it for today's show. See you next time.